as the likes of Virtus Pro or Citadel or Na'Vi, despite the fact that they were rad before, you have to have those adjustments in the back pocket, and this is a big series for both. They still have a lifeline with going down to losers bracket if they lose, but if they win, they can go up against Virtus Pro, who I think are going to be a little bit nervous about playing either of them.
Yeah, FaZe have already shown that they have what it takes. Chopped have shown that they have improved since that Marvel Rivals Championship matchup that they had versus Virtus Pro a little bit earlier. So Chopped are continuously getting better. FaZe are continuously getting better. Either one of these is going to be a bit of a tough opponent for Virtus Pro, but they are sitting there confident they are, or at least they need to win their match first in order to get their OG seed. Will be their first opponent, which will be our last series of the day.
Scary thing about it for FaZe is that you're going up against the Chops that haven't lost on domination yet in Ignite. And Celestial Husk, they've played 3 times. It's a random map domination to begin with. They've played it 3 times and they've won it 3 times. It is their most popular and most winningest map, I suppose, for them. And the main focus for the draft, I think, is going to be that both teams want to prioritize getting the Jeff early. So that has to be a first ban. So it means that you kind of have to pivot over towards Mantis and maybe see if you can get the likes of a Luna or an Adam or an Ultron later on in the draft too.
Chopped have up till this point banned Jeff 6 times. They are 3 and 3 when they have banned it. So it seems to be a safe, solid choice for them. But then, of course, we looked at those FaZe stats we were talking about early. They actually banned Jeff pretty consistently. It's their 3rd most banned hero, being banned 7 times and now 8. With their most banned heroes being Mantis and Ultron, which we are in fact seeing reflected in this draft, although the Mantis currently has slipped through thanks to the protection of Chop.
Yeah, it's just that first phase, the Venom being taken out, even though they don't need to worry about the Jeff. I mean, it is a very divey map, and you also know that you're going up against like Rosa and Binary. The problem is that's probably the most eclectic, versatile tank lineup that we've seen outside of the likes of VP and stuff. So I think certainly you need to watch out for Binary potentially being on the Angel a little bit, but making sure that you get a one-sided Venom on the side for DRP mostly, I think, but Beetle can play it too. Probably a good showing. Torch is also taking out quite a lot from both these teams, but Celestial Husk, it is an awkward map in regards to the points being very different. If you're on Krakoa, sure, you could just probably torch it the whole time. But here, the Invisible Woman's been taken out, so that is one-sided in favor of FaZe as well.
Pick your hero or villain.
Trying to get themselves a little bit of aerial control. With the Ultrons taken out, there is still space if someone did want to go for a torch. It also allows Star-Lords to move around freely, which neither team so far appear to be touching. As for most of the games we cast last week, Ryan, actually had Hulk bans being stuck in there, but this time we're not seeing any of that. So we're seeing Hulk Namor start to slip back in for the side of FaZe, as opposed to their normal Star-Lord lead that they've been going for fairly recently. Whereas Chopped, they're going to be leaning back towards the Groot.
To see how it all plays out. Both these teams familiar with each other. I'm pretty sure they haven't scrimmed each other for a while as well. It's almost like they had that gut feeling that they would run into each other and it would be a big game. I think it's fair to say, Tetcher, in this one, Chopped to the favorites, but not by much. If there's anything that teams have been getting wrong about FaZe, it's underestimating them. And if you do that now, you not only lose your golden chance to qualify for Atlanta as a top 3 EMEA team, but you could come out completely empty-handed. Chopped need to focus up. This isn't just a phase for FaZe. This isn't just a honeymoon. They're the real deal. And I think that's the thing that you need to keep in mind for them going into the series.
Who's going to come out on top? Who will move on to play against Virtus Pro or OG Seed? As All Black looks on, we head into the first round of Celestial Husk. We are going for that Star-Lord. We saw it being hovered around the Phoenix, but going for that aerial control for both teams seems to be the priority here. Not going so far as the Na'Vi side and bringing out the rockets to give them that extra teleport with it, but still being able to give them a little bit of dueling potential.
Got the Hulk Gamma team up. We're not going to see much of it after this event with changes in the future, but so far Namor and Hulk do have that BFF friendship, and so far the point is a bit more of a scramble. FaZe wanted to try to sort of cement their backline and just throw in this poke damage. You've got the invisible shield that's going to help just to make sure that Leyless can build up that ultimate, and he's not too far away from having it either, but it's Smash This that's actually putting out a good portion of damage. He's 75% on the way to having a Horn of Proteus before the points even be taken.
Building it up so quickly. We're, of course, going to be seeing this Gamma Monstro taken away in the next patch in Season 4.5, but it's still doing so much work at the moment. DRP into the backline, trying to put some harassment onto the strategist. Holder Proteus does come out, but does not find a target, but Rosa is able to finish off Tuzi. This is going to be FaZe, slow but steady. They are taking control, but Chops, they try to commit to a counterfight. They take out Leolaz with the help of that Soul Resurgence from Crazy Kitty.
Yeah, Crazy Kitty's been so good with just ultimates, whether it's the Ultron or now the Mantis, just to make sure that they gain some tempo back into their favor despite being a player down. They're even going to use the Feast of the Abyss themselves. And Vertigo isn't that far away from having a Karmic Revival. You've got the Loki kit that can even copy it across if they want to as well, and I think that's what they've picked up. It might actually be a Soul Resurgence I think the Mash has grabbed.
They're trying to push in, at least they're trying to force this fight to keep control. Leo in the sky is just going to melt through the Emma, prevent any of that extra crowd control. Tuzi and Leo both going to be dueling through this. Tuzi comes out on top. Rosa will get revenge though, getting the counter pickup, and Vertigo is completely flipping this back on its head. We've not seen a lot of Adam from the side of Chopped, but already it's showing its value. They played it 3 times, won twice with it. Sorry, lost twice with it. It does not matter. The portal, if you can't revive, you might as well just get back faster.
The point hasn't been taken yet. We've seen pretty much all of the ultimates being used. It's been, what, 2, maybe 3 minutes? And Chopped have managed to turn it around, despite the fact that they've been on the back foot for the majority of these fights. Just the sustain of having that Soul Resurgence twice with the copy from Loki, and then that Karmic Revival from the Adam. The fight is still going on. It's not as if they've taken it at this rate, but it is forcing a lot more out. FaZe are not too far away from having an invisible boundary, but they've lost 2 of their players already. They might need to regroup and let Chopped, after 3 to 5 business days, finally take that first point.
Finally going to be going over. Chopped to take the first control. They're already built back up to a Soul Resurgence and a God of Mischief. Vertigo 50% of the way towards the Karmic Revival. And Leo, looking for a Loki counter here, has decided that even on a non-convoy map, it's time to bring out the Moon Knight.
Going for something a little bit different. It is more of a static line. It's not feeling as divey as some of the comps that we saw earlier today in the 2 best-of-5 series that we saw previous to this one. But already Leolaz has built up a fist of Khonshu ready to slam down, 70% on the way. And there's a lot to bank up for FaZe, but it feels like Chopped now are just able to contest the point, not really fight too much. Despite the fact that they have some ultimates to work with, they don't need to play as neutrally, and it's mostly just to focus down that with the Galactic Legend. Leolaz building up the ultimate, doesn't get a chance to use it.
Tuzi keeping control of the battlefield here. Horde of Proteus gonna be coming out, does get a 4-man stun, but there's no follow-up, and Leo only just returning from spawn. But they did not have the DPS to actually land any finishing blows. DRP getting locked in, held with Silent Seduction, but Symbiotic Resilience keeps them topped up. Soul Resurgence from Mash will expire as Leo does come in. Hand of Khonshu takes out one. Smashness getting onto Beetle, but guess what? Who's back? Everyone's back. Crazy Kitty's gone. Crazy Kitty's back. The Karmic Revival from Vertigo is keeping Chopped in this fight as they're pushing back in, but Leo making the most of how much everyone's grouped up, and the Loki clones to just deflect and stack up damage with this Moon Knight.
The DRP's not really been CC'd out that much though. It's really up to the Hulk to try to get the stun across, or maybe the Invisible Woman for Winnie to just keep him pulled back, but it's not really working. DRP's getting sort of free reign now. He's under a little bit more stress, and yeah, he gets actually pulled into the fight. Oasis gets the clear. A big pick in the end, but it's 99% on the board for Chop. FaZe haven't really been able to do that much damage in the end. Now's a good chance because there's no Karmic Revival, but Tuzi wants to try to get ahead of the action. The Invisible Boundary is going to be shelter and a chance to stay on the point to keep that overtime wick burning for FaZe. But still, again, it's just allowing a chance for Chop to get back, and now with the portal, it really feels that reinforcements never left.
Chopped keep control, they keep it fighting, they're almost built up to another Karmic Revival. They have a God of Mischief, so they already have one technically. Leo falls, there's no portal for them. They have to run back in, or I guess glide back in via Moon Knight. No, they're going to swap over to Phoenix and just try and get back quicker, just so they have any chance to contest this. Beetle has the Silent Seduction, Mash going in for the copy. Smashness with the double though, maybe enough to try and turn this round. The fate of both worlds copied by Mash to keep their team topped up, at least the people who are left of it. Vertigo revives themselves because they're on 99%, meaning Karmic Revival is here, but FaZe aren't finding the pickups either way. I have Agamotto from behind onto Oasis and Winnie. The backline is down. decimated.
That was a hell of a dive from the Strange. He gets both of the strategists in that backline, and now it's a mad scramble for FaZe. They've got Rosa moving over towards the Strange, but the portal's been used now. And for Tuzi, he's sort of sitting back, just chipping away at the backline. There's now nobody really left alive for FaZe to keep this contested, and if they are, they're not going to be too long for this world. You see Smashless trying to run away to get some security. Endsong Inferno's going to be used. Might have been better to sort of bank that for the second point, but FaZe are not giving this up, Tetra, at all.
They're giving everything. Binaries over to the Angela for the fast rotation. Smashless is on their way back on Psylocke. Here comes the Soul Resurgence from Crazy Kitty, but Beetle has fallen. Vertigo has another Karmic Revival. They come back again, keeping this as a 6v6. Ayamangamoto from Rosa for the turnaround. Mash goes down, Kitty goes down, but they're back again. The revival is up. They didn't wait for it to expire as they continue the 6v6. Finally, Tuzi and Winnie go down. Leo able to get the snipe. Rosa gets DRP. They have control. Dance to the butterfly to take out the backline is available, but it's not needed as Smashness is cleaning up in the backline with that mobility, and they get the flip.
They take the point. Of course they take the point. Well, nobody had any plans after this, right? You got Americas later on. They pushed that back because I think we're going to be here quite some time. FaZe were not happy to just kind of keep the ultimates and play for a good second point. And I think one of the things about Celestial Husk with these kind of fights is taking that point initially is more easier than trying to take it later on. So now FaZe, they don't really have too much of a backline to worry about. Like, they have no safety net, and it looks like DRP is going to just take the point for free. Actually requires Layla, sorry, to actually swing back in to get the pick. And that's good, at least, because Chopped's now trying to sort of be a little bit coy with their approach. Now buying more time for FaZe to build this up.
They have hyper dive potential. This has served FaZe quite well in the past. The Angela Psylocke, usually with a Venom, but they have not been able to get Rosa over to that because they had to port back in the last second here. But they do now have Endsong Inferno. No real follow-up to it outside of just overall damage. Binary doing a great charge, trying to prevent Venom from getting any mobility with the knockups, but Rosa and Smashness both fall down here. Sonic Seduction for the setup. Leo is on the flank, but cannot do the damage, and suddenly Chop, slow but steady, have just walked in and are trying to take control, forcing out the fate of both worlds.
Don't know if Rosa's going to have Portal yet, because he used it fairly recently, all things considered. And even with all of these picks going the way of Chopped, you've got the Soul Resurgence, you've got the Loki that can copy the Soul Resurgence again. I'll go for Karmic Revival. It just keeps that aggression, those picks. It means a lot more for Chopped, and it's harder for FaZe to actually really get too much done. This time isn't going to be a, 6-minute hold in overtime for FaZe. They're going to lose it, and kind of like you said, Tetra, Chopped took it relatively easy considering how hard it is to retake those points on Celestial Husk, full stop.
They stepped on and they were just able to take control. And a big part of that, I feel, is the one-sided Venom. That last ban coming in from Chopped was such a difference maker. Normally, you would see FaZe move over to that Venom once the Strange goes down, sacrifice the ultimate to get back to the point quickly. But they were just unable to do so because they had no portal, they just used it, and no Venom, it was banned. They just did not have the tools for this contest. But now, looks like they decided it's time to make the most of what we got. We have an Eye of Agamotto. We can either swap off it and try and maximize something else, take the 50% ult charge and build up to something already on the way, or make the most of the fact we have the Strange, we have the Eye of Agamotto, and it's time to bring in the magic.
Going for the Strange straight away. Are they going for a portal play? Because we have seen a lot of portal... Yeah, they are. We've seen a lot of portal plays on this point in the map, but it's the fact that you have the magic and the Angela that I'm curious if this is going to be just like a straight-up kidnap.
A lot of shots coming in. They're going to see if they can get someone. They found the entire group downstairs except for Tuzi, who will be behind them on that Star-Lord, picking away. But Smash is the first to fall. Crazy Kitty countering the dive. Mash going to be going in for the copy so they can make sure they sustain through the rest of this fight. But already a disaster for FaZe. They're the ones who engage, but Chopped are able to sustain it, hold it, and take control of the first point.
Sort of means that timing-wise, it might work out for Rosa if they want to stay on the Strange to go for a portal play a little bit later on. But outside of that, the timing could be rough. You want to try and stall things out as much as possible. And Chop now having to give up the high ground and bunker back onto the point. So FaZe might be able to put some pressure onto the objective itself. We have got this dive, Angelus diving, and the Eye of Agamotto does connect onto Crazy Kitty, but you have got the rejuvenation field from MASH that are keeping most people up, but the burst is still good enough to take down 2 players. The problem is the camera revival has just brought them straight back.
Oh, but there's them sending right back to the afterlife again as the Endsong Inferno comes in. Vertigo will be able to bring themselves back, so Crazy Kitty's the only one that the elimination sticks to. Winnie taken down on the side, though, as Tuzi was able to hold everything. They saw that FaZe had burned basically all of their big abilities and was able to find a flank on the pickup. Heaven's Retribution from above, but it finds nothing. Immediately bursts and Smashless cannot win a 1v6.
It's just too much. You also have to say that Tuzi's doing a great job considering there's no Ultron, there's no Luna, there's no Invisible Woman to give him shields or any just sort of like, you can go on your own, we could just put an idle aura on you to keep you alive. It means that Crazy Kitty sort of has to do a lot of the healing over time stuff instead of damage boosting. But Tuzi's been so good to just be in and out of these fights that he's not taking too much damage and he's not taking too many resources away from Crazy Kitty other than a damage boost when the likes of Galactic Legend comes around. Speaking of which, Soul Resurgence is good to go. It might be a great chance as Beetle does have that Strangled Prison as we see the group versus group for 2 of the best players on them.
Counter wall coming out. Rosa using it to protect their own team here. Double, triple on the Psionic Seduction, pulling everyone in. But the healing output, Oasis, keeping their team topped up. But that's their only remaining ultimate as they build up towards Rosa's. But they are heading back to spawn, so they won't get the chance. Crazy Kitty pulls the trigger to push on in, and Chopped take another solid control point. No one's even close to be able to hold this for a portal to come in. They'll get taken out far too quick. And that is just going to be a clean second round and first map for Chopped.
Yeah, it felt the FaZe threw everything that they had into that first point to try and contest it, and Chopped just had the resources to go in and take this one fairly handedly. But this is a team that hasn't lost on domination. 6 for 6 at Chopped. And maybe if there's a chance later on for FaZe, you need to not lose these next 2 map types because you are just letting domination come back into this best of 5. And I would imagine that's where Chopped would want to take this one to the likes of Hell's Heaven and stuff. But yeah, Tuzi, 35-3. Does a great job considering there wasn't too many resources funneled into him in comparison to having a Luna and stuff and an Invisible Woman or an Ultron. It just felt that he had free reign. And every ultimate that we saw from those Galactic Legends, well timed, well played, well executed, and a well won map 1 for Chopped.
Yeah, you can see Leo actually took some pretty solid duels versus them, but it just came down to the fights on the ground, really. The fact that Tuzi was only really being targeted by, for example, the Leo or the Smashless for the short time they were Star-Lord. It was the ground fight that seemed to make the difference, drawing so much attention away. And while Chopped did struggle a little bit on that first round, that's more just a really big boost to how we look at FaZe of just how resilient they are and how willing they are to swap some of this fast rotation out heroes and hyper dive when they need it. But on the second point, this was just Chopped. Exactly what they needed. They swapped over to the group because they knew it's the best way to hold these tight enclosed areas on the interior bits. They countered the initial portal and just never lost momentum from there.
Pretty much, yeah. And it's tough for FaZe, I suppose, to be able to sort of bounce back from that one in the end. But this is just the kind of area where FaZe did go for some adjustments, picking up the Moon Knight and stuff, trying to go for a completely different style of Celestial Husk that we've even seen in difference from today, which has been a lot more Captain America Venom divey. When the Venom's banned out, it does require teams to sort of play out a little bit differently, and that was less dive, more just this kind of like neutral pokey kind of composition. I wonder if we're going to see that keep coming up in this best of 5. But before we go to the map choice of FaZe, which is either going to be Convoy or Convergence, we're going to go for a quick break, so we'll see you in a few.
I'm hunkering down. Judge, jury, executioner!
It feels like a bit of a measured twice, cut once approach for Chopped so far, but it is also measure twice, cut and miss, and then just have Adam cam at revival so you can just keep swinging. That seems to be the goal plan, and it does translate well to these other game modes outside of the King of the Hill texture. I don't want to sort of ask, like, does it need to be addressed a little bit more with the Adam Warlock? Like, do we need to see more bans and stuff going in? Because it was open for both sides, yet we never really saw FaZe want to move over to it.
Yeah, it very much seems to come down to preference and obviously composition. In this case, having the Adam Warlock plus the Loki Mantis just was so overwhelming in terms of damage boost, in terms of having that Loki increased area on the regeneration domain, means they were protected from a lot of the initial dive, and then just having the revive to keep it going. It was just a little bit too much for FaZe to deal with at this stage. But the fact is, Adam is being addressed pretty consistently in these bans, as is Jeff, continuously getting banned away.
The interesting thing about this series not only is the fact that for FaZe, the majority of this squad comes from Zero Tenacity previously in Stage 1. You've got Chopped that also was mostly Team Peps from Stage 1 and beyond. These guys, Team Peps versus Z10 was the first matchup of playoffs back in Stage 1 as well, where Z10 got a 2-0 win. So those Peps players that are on Chopped currently might be looking for a bit more revenge, but also for Ariko and Convoy total on the side, we're seeing FaZe only play Convoy once. They had the choice to go here or Convergence, but they've actually come to Ariko, which is the one map that we've seen really played from Chopped that also like to pick this map themselves.
Yeah, Chopped are 3 games in. They are 2-1 when it comes to Arako, where we've only seen it once from FaZe, which I believe was against VP, which they did win. So it's a little bit of a rarer pick when it comes to this side of the board. But FaZe, seeing that it has been a map where they've been able to take games off the best teams and a map where Chopped have lost on, they're going to take their chances.
I feel like here we saw the Adam ban that came in for Chopped onto FaZe. Sorry, so they didn't have access to the Adam at all. It was one-sided, and the same things happened here. FaZe wanted to try and take out the Luna, which again takes away some of the support that you typically give towards 2Z, and it's looking like the same draft almost so far. So FaZe are not too thrown off at the fact of, like, the Adam worked really well for Chopped. It gives the Loki over. The one change that has come in is that Groot as a final ban instead of, I think it was Venom beforehand.
So Venom is not going to be banned away this time. Another map where it's a little harder for him to roll out, but if you know the rollouts, you can still make it to a point extremely fast. It's just those small doorways can be proved to be a little bit more difficult. Invis, final protection, guaranteeing them one of the strongest strategists, preventing them from having to lean onto stuff like the Loki Mantis and then with an Adam. So now they have at least some more options. Inside of FaZe, they are going to ban out the Adam this time. So Invis and Mantis, though, is still an incredibly good lineup, especially for if you want to play a flyer.
So far, so good, I think, with the draft. You still have those elements. So what was different? So it was the order for FaZe was Jeff, Luna, Ultron, and now it's Jeff, Ultron, Luna. So they were really worried, I guess, that that second Protect could potentially come in and go over towards the Ultron this time. I wanted to get that out before the Luna was in play. But so far, the Protects are pretty much exactly the same. It is the Invisible Woman Protect instead of the Venom before. And not really that much focus going on to like Emma Frost, which seems to be another thing that's happening in these pure convoy modes. But maybe that's because they know that FaZe do like to bring out the newest Vanguard to add to our roster, that being Angela. And the win over Virtus Pro, considering this was Virtus Pro's pretty much home ground, I think, in Stage 1, feels like it was a statement and an eyebrow raiser.
I also want to bring up a really interesting point there. You brought up the not banning Emma Frost from Chopped, but I'm curious that we're not seeing it from FaZe as well. We do know that Chopped do like to run the Emma from time to time. It's not their most picked, but it's up there. It's 7-2 in the times they've picked it. But in the 4 times it's been banned against them, they've lost 3 of them. So I'm kind of curious why we're not seeing a little bit of a focus onto the front line, where it's just that these strategists are so strong right now.
Especially when you typically see the likes of Triple Vanguard. And that's pretty much what's in play. Already lost 1. Rose has been knocked off the map by Crazy Kitty, just pulled apart from one of the common Wolverine players. And the dive is a good one. I guess the most interesting thing is we're seeing the thing just thrown in alongside Tuzi on the Bucky to start off. And so far, it has forced FaZe back a little bit. And Binary needs to be careful he doesn't get hooked or caught by this anti-air Vanguard that now is the thing.
The thing coming in gives them one, the anti-air against the Angela. 2, can't be displaced by the Angela, so is a safe character to lead the front line. 3, cosmic fastball. If you're going to bring out Crazy Kitty, you might as well launch them into the stratosphere and try and get people picked off early. So they're hyper committing to this aggressive push out and not being countered by Binary, who they do finish off with the force physics, with that psychic vortex there, in order to stop them from flying and dropping them into the terrain. Very cool play there.
Oh, and it's a really good invisible boundary to just sort of place Crazy Kitty right in the action, able to cleave people. So if FaZe want to stay, they really have to give up some point progression. Invisible boundary is going to be used, and Chopped actually giving this a lot of respect. Reset as Beetle was taken down. And you can sort of see these defenders of FaZe wanted to try and reclaim some of this space in the end, going for the charge to try to connect over onto Crazy Kitty that's just narrowly alive, able to teleport up to the high ground and look to potentially go for a counter-attack. But this is a backwards and forwards. FaZe are not really sure if they're in or out at this point, as Chopped waiting for reinforcements are going to get them. And another invisible boundary. It was copied from MASH.
Binary once again was caught out of position. There is that invisible boundary, like you say. Tuzi gets Oasis as Chopped continued this push forward, but FaZe, they're delaying a lot of time here. Binary moving over to Emma to follow in through the portal, but they've been spending a lot of time on this Angela, not actually on the point, fighting before it, because they are the one who can get there faster. This allows them to delay a little bit more in terms of the amount of duration they actually have to fight on the point, and it is working. They've actually locked Chopped down for quite a long time here. The problem is Chopped have been overwhelming them in most of the team fights. Smashness is going to get another pickup though onto MASH, which is buying even more time, and it's slow and it's steady, but FaZe are very gently pushing Chopped back with 1:37 to go.
We've had closer holds, I think, on the defense so far, so it's not a bad line in the sand for FaZe to draw, but it's whether they can keep the payload there for the rest of this defensive half. 90 seconds for Chopped. You do have that scary combo of the Strangled Prison and then the Kraken's Impact all lined up. There's an invisible boundary ready to go for Winnie that might keep people alive, and it's there just in time. The knockback is also good. You've got the onslaught of damage that's starting to come through from Chopped, but it's more just a hack and a slash. The FaZe are not going down quietly or at all in any rate, so that play from Chopped going around those ultimates hasn't led to much. It might rely on Crazy Kitty trying to get a good last stand. The Feast of the Abyss combo could have gone with it, but catching Oasis in this neutral is a big move.
And there was no BRB, so Oasis does not come back. Rosa will come back though. It comes up just in time for the revive, but not enough time for Smashness or Winnie, meaning even with these slow revives, the point is taken, and it's just going to be more bodies on the pile. Rosa and Leoles go down right at the end, and point 1 is taken by Chopped.
It's also worth adding that we saw both these teams first banning Jeff, first protecting Mantis. Neither team having Mantis in their teams thus far.
Yeah.
Just a in a back pocket kind of thing. And it's also like for FaZe, one of the reasons why we might not have seen them on Convoy much is because they're typically a 2-2-2 team when they try to play these comps. Like seeing Leoless playing on the Rocket Raccoon was odd, and Smash Theirs on a Vanguard, because they typically want to be on those duelists as much as possible. You got Crazy Kitty trying to go in for the dive. The bulwark from Rosa is a good one to make sure that nobody goes down whilst FaZe try to regroup and fight for this. Meteor M is going to be thrown in to try to go for Crazy Kitty as that last stand does come through. And Kraken's Impact from Tuzi, it's a little bit misaligned with these combinations from Chopped, but it is forcing FaZe to really respect this space and start pressing the S key to sort of back up a little bit more. But no picks have actually gone through. You've got the Endsong Inferno that's going to be used more as a defensive to just make sure that you don't go down in a fight. Now he needs to be careful that there's not going to be a follow-up from Chopped.
Most of the ultimates are being burnt here to hold this in place. Chopped used all theirs, weren't able to find as many pickups. FaZe used all theirs, but did still potentially get disjointed. So they're still having to burn ultimates to sort of make up and catch up for the initial start of this engage. Here comes the Silent Seduction to try and lock down at least a couple people here. Is able to get DRP and twos even again. Where's the follow-up? Leo has that Kraken Impact, but no one's even close to weak enough to capitalize on it.
No, not at all. It's just, again, what we saw on the domination map is just these kind of long brawled out fights, but then you start to see the elimination feed glow up up in this orangey red. The trades are back, and you have got the Kraken's impact use from Leolus. Can he get a reset? It doesn't look like it. There's just too many people surviving on the side of Chopped, and the actual connections are working grand for Tuzi. Able to move on to the second point, and FaZe haven't really had a good chance to hold off on this payload. It's more delaying this constant moving forward from Chopped.
But this is something that could work in their favor. This last point is so hard to actually finish. So this is where FaZe, who have spent a lot of effort and a lot of ultimates, simply just burning down the clock. If they can hold this on the last point, that still sets them up to a position where they can try and take this with the lower chance of a draw. So there is reason here behind the madness. While they do seem to be struggling, while Chopped are pushing through, they are still setting themselves up as best as they can in that situation. That was a lovely block on the straggling prison.
It was perfect, and I was a little bit worried for FaZe because they have all of their players down on the low ground, which means that players like DRP can just hop up on the high ground and sort of flank in behind. This feels like it's almost like a checkpoint in of itself, trying to get underneath where this payload is starting to move through and onto the other side. So FaZe have a great place to try and take this fight, and you're getting a lot of big ultimates out with 90 seconds on the clock yet again. For FaZe, they managed to hold on, but up until then, Leolus gets caught up from DRP, who is just being so good at getting the fight back into Chopped's favor.
Leo's had this Kraken impact for a while, just hasn't been able to find the opening. They're not setting up for it. They're about to have, though, the Psionic Seduction. If Binary stays up, getting dropped extremely low there, but they can use that for the setup. They're trying to lock down DRP, which they will get. Smash this with the pickup here. Once again, Spawn is way closer for FaZe now, meaning that they do have the advantage, but Chopped's momentum is just looking so good, but never mind. Look at that. What a setup by Binary.
It was crazy clean. Able to sort of move on to some of the more meta options for the Vanguard line and looking good doing it. He actually got interrupted out of it, so Chopped have to sort of just use their little toesies, get their stepometers ready to try to walk back onto the point. But a hell of an interrupt from FaZe to make sure that a portal play can't happen. More time being bought.
Smash Des with the interrupt there. Like we said, this is all about burning down the clock for FaZe, and they are putting everything on the line for it. 30 seconds remain. No portal for Chopped, meaning it's basically this fight or nothing. They try to make their way in. Wolverine is interrupted by the barrier, but Rosa still falls. Invisible boundary now sets them up into a 5 versus 6. Kraken impact for 2.
What a time. That is a real, like, tune in next time cutaway. I can almost hear, like, Roundabout from Yes playing in the background to set it up. Yeah, what a moment. At least
the soldier will return this summer.
Pretty much. So for FaZe, it's a chance. I guess it's probably similar to other games of, like, when there's a tech pause, people have to be quiet until it's solved. Obviously, if there's somebody that's DC'd, they need to talk to League Ops and be like, somebody's DC'd, pause, please. But right in the center of the action, FaZe, it's so close whether they're able to hold before this third checkpoint or whether it's going to hit the end for Chopped. But also, nowadays, it feels like it's pretty much a hold on first or have the map finish out the way that this meta has been playing for the most part.
It really does, but again, this last point is so hard to take. That spawn door is literally underneath Ultron's throne, so being able to just get in there when you have such a long walk means you have to win a convincing fight, basically. That's the only way you do it. Spawn timers are the only friend you have when you're on attack at this final point, so this is all about whether Chops can either get enough pickups in one go or enough of a stagger close enough together that the spawn timers will be able to carry them through it. Whereas on FaZe, it's time to start swapping. We saw them do it on map 1. When you go down, it is time to swap to whatever the fastest character to get out that door is.
It's a brave move, I think, from FaZe to choose this map because it's the only map that we have seen them play on Convoy. I think full stop, maybe outside of like MRC, but I remember like MRC because there wasn't this rule of like you could play domination and then you had to play another game mode. You could play like 3 dominations in a row if you really wanted to. I don't remember seeing that much like Convoy game mode from FaZe at all. I remember stuff like Central Park and stuff, but
yeah, I'm actually having a look. So this is just for Ignite, not for MRC. So,
yeah. They haven't played
Spider
it at all
Islands
in Ignite.
1, Spider Islands and Duraco, and that's it. Amarin, Kraken impact comes on out to the triple, quadruple. Oh, yeah, that'll do it. That's going to wipe the board, and they got it.
That was a bit anticlimactic as a tune-in next time. 2Z just cleans up house. But 7 seconds on the clock isn't too bad. It's not as if you can play for a draw in this game mode at all. So FaZe have to finish out the map, do it with a bit more time, and see if they can do much at all once we get into these OT situations. Like I said, FaZe, yeah, we haven't really seen all that much from them playing this. It is just more of a case of like Araco, the one map that you have got gameplay on for FaZe, it means that Chopped's prep is going to be somewhat decent because you're going to pull out all the stops when you play up against Virtus Pro. So I imagine Chopped saw that FaZe game and sort of went, okay, we know what they're going to do. This is how we anti-strat it.
Well, let's see if they have prepared enough. Chopped, have they put enough attention into FaZe? But obviously, we keep talking like a lot of teams have been, a lot of people in the audience have been, about Citadel, about Na'Vi, about Virtus Pro. FaZe have been continuously proving how much of a mistake it is to underestimate them.
So,
FaZe were knocked down to the losers bracket in Group B. Their first opponent was Na'Vi, so, you know, fair enough. But then having to beat PEPS, Alcancia, Vice, and then almost beating Virtus Pro in a full best of 5. They haven't lost many of those, but they haven't lost many series full stop. So you have to be a little bit more careful. It does mean that if FaZe do lose this map and we go into series point, that they do have a choice of convergence. But if you have any ideas on different maps and certain strategies that you've not shown, you want to save them for the qualifying games, but you don't want to waste them in best of 5s like this one.
But at this point, like you say, it's kind of do or die. While you can still tank through as best you can, you really want to get every win on the board as possible, because if you win this, then you're close to qualifying. You only need to win 1 game instead of 2 or 3, or depending on how many you are away if you go down to those lower brackets. And right now, classic Moonlight Storm. Nothing new, nothing crazy, but they're slowly creeping forward. But that first right angle is where we start to see the holes.
I guess the concerning thing is the area that worked well for FaZe was their defense against Virtus Pro. They were able to hold first point the portion of the time. So FaZe now having to finish the map. It's a tall order. We don't see it that much nowadays, but they have it in them. You've got the Fisticon shoe that is ready to be thrown in, but it might be there to line up. You've lost Oasis, unfortunately, but Leolus, there it is. The combination getting to 2 of the 3 strategists. It's just 2Z that's alive on the Mantis now that we see it in play for both teams. And Leolus cleaning up house. A very dominant sort of win in this fight. Chopped probably have to switch over to the Strange to go for a pole play and recontest this.
Khonshu is smiling down on FaZe today. The phase of the moon is full, which of course does affect Moon Knight's powers, depending on what phase of the moon we're in. But they start to move forward. Rosa, that's in comics, not in game. I'm not.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Secret strats here. Rosa pushes forward. Sonic seduction from Crazy Kitty. From above, trying to catch onto the backline. Is able to grab Leo, but Leo is tanking through. Is able to escape onto the backline. Ayamagamoto interrupted.
A big one. Rosa was trying to come in, but it does mean that he's the one that goes down first in that fight, so might be able to sort of portal in if they want to keep these numbers up on the attacking side. For Chopped, you got the Soul Resurgence being in use that's allowing DRP another big pick in these big fights. So now him and Beetle have been able to team up to clear up house for FaZe, who have to reset this one just right at the end. Binary's going to jump into the Abyss to try to reset themselves a little bit faster. You have under 2 minutes on the clock, but the payload is in the hands of Chopped, and they've pushed up past it to make this very uncomfortable for FaZe to attack.
There's only a few meters to go, but FaZe can break this once, like they've already done twice at this point, that they're setting themselves up beautifully. Omega Hurricane, ready. Hand of Khonshu, almost ready. Ayamagamoto, almost built back up. But if they get caught by this straggling prison, it could be all over for them. Here comes the Omega Hurricane, into the backline, looking for Loki. Take out the strategist first. The Lantern gets deleted, but has to retreat to make their way back to the rest of their team because Crazy Kitty just absolutely popped off.
He's just continuing to be one of the best, most versatile flex plays that we're seeing in the region, able to get 2 without even needing to use a Psionic Seduction. So now that 2 minutes has dropped down to 1. FaZe have some stuff to work with. but it's whether it's going to be another overtime brawl for both sides. There is no Strangling Prison available, but Meteor M and Silent Seduction going to be coming out from the vanguards from Chopped, pulling in the FaZe. But it seems that everybody's managing to keep themselves alive, and there's so many ultimates to go for FaZe now. It's going to be the Eye of Agamotto catching on to 2, but Match has got the combo in. He's actually been able to get the copy onto the invisible boundary, but that Fist of Khonshu cleans up on 3. You see Crazy Kitty switching over towards the Strange. I don't know if it's going to be fast enough to port play. Actually, it might just be in time.
They keep delaying, they keep throwing bodies at it with the Loki, but it's too late. Point 1 grabbed by FaZe, but a little bit slower than Chopped. While they did burn through a lot of Chopped time, FaZe are still behind pace right now.
It was this fight on the second point that really allowed Chop to build up some of this momentum with the payload moving. They just have one player on it so far, and everybody else has pushed up pretty much to the second checkpoint. All this way to maintain that Chop have to use some big cooldowns or even ultimates to go for a fight even near this objective. But you are one player down as it's being moved along slowly by Winnie, I believe. The Eternal Bond is almost ready into this fight. Now they're going to go in for this engagement, but DRP gets 2 as the Silent Seduction was used, including the Cloak and Dagger that had that Eternal Bond.
They tried to set up, they had a Hand of Khonshu, they had Eternal Bond, they used the Silent Seduction, and they found exactly 0. Chops were able to defend that. They've moved over to a triple strategist solo duelist in the form of Tuzi on that Phoenix to try and just burst through that front line, to try and set themselves up the hit scans to try and deal with Leo, who is right now just continuing to take advantage of the fact that there are so many people grouped in the backline. A Mega Hurricane into that backline. Invisible Boundary has to be dropped and force Smashness to retreat, but it's going to be a pretty solid trade. 2 for 3 in favor of Chopped, but FaZe are able to get themselves on the board, but again they lose Leo before they can ult.
I think it was DRP again that finds a pick just as FaZe were trying to go for the offensive option there. And now they're able to at least keep that payload under this bridge, but you can see just how far Beetle's pushed up. He has got that Strangling Prison to sit back on. And Soul Resurgence, you're atop of the hill. You could just waterfall right down onto these FaZe players. You just need to be careful about the Eye of Agamotto and certainly the Fist of Khonshu, as Laylis has been finding a lot with it.
Tuzi finds the pickup onto Binary as they push on in. Eye of Agamotto and Hand of Khonshu once again at the ready. DRP pulls the trigger. Hand of Khonshu comes on down, finds very little. It almost is a spooning Khonshu here. But this does give FaZe the opportunity to try and make an angle, but they lose Smashness. Tuzi on the flank from behind, and the pathway created by Cloak and Dagger is turning into a red carpet, red with the blood of FaZe as they're getting taken down. Eye of Agamotto looking for the counter with the Phoenix coming from above with the Ensom Inferno. Both teams are just reinforcing as fast as they can as Fate of Both Worlds is the only thing keeping FaZe alive as they retreat back to the corner, losing Leo on the way out.
Mash is finding so much value on the low key, like the invisible boundary swaps this time to just maintain that fight when you've got stuff like the Eye of Agamotto being used. Nobody goes down, and Tuzi's been finding so much all on his lonesome again. There is an invisible boundary in hand for Vertigo, and he goes down even through it from that Fist of Khonshu, but nobody's able to touch from FaZe.
Time ticks down. They got a pickup right as they tried to rush the point, but the timing and the zoning from Chopped was just too strong. They sit 2-0 up in this best of 5.
Ooh, Rutro, it's one cut away from an upper bracket qualifying game for Chopped. And it's really a chance for FaZe now that they've got their backs to the wall to show that they're really in for this one. Layla's having a lot of final hits, 12 and going 19-9, pretty positive in the right places, but it just seems to be that Chopped are not leaving anything open, and they have some great answers to the questions that FaZe are wanting to put forward.
And the question is, where do you go from here? If we have a look at Chopped statistics, the only map they've really struggled on up to this point is Yggdrasil, which they have yet to win on. They haven't won on Symbiotic Surface either, and seeing as the only map option left is Convergence, perhaps we need to be heading to Symbiotic Surface, as again, it's the only one we haven't seen Chopped perform on yet.
You got Central Park as well, which I don't think we've seen too much from Chopped, at least
At the point we have no information on there.
Yeah.
Symbiotic when they're 0 and 1.
It's just too much of a risk, I would say. But it's like they have picked Symbiotic Service and Central Park in the past, so there's a chance there. Jalia, you've done all well. It's like literally 50-50. 1 win, 1 loss on all of those convergence maps, minus Chin Shibuya that's not in play at the moment. And obviously we're not there for Xiao Lao's Kunlun map that's coming into the game fairly soon, right? So for Chopped, it's tricky now, I suppose, to really know what you're preparing for. But here, when it's a convoy, you sort of expected Arako. You got Arako, and you dealt with exactly what FaZe used against Virtus Pro to a T, and there wasn't really too much of a fight back, it felt.
Really, like, they tried so much. They brought out the Moon Knight and it was working, but the second we saw the adjustment coming out from Chopped, it was all about just, they found Leo basically every time. And that's with Leolas having that team up with the Cloak and Dagger, where they have even some self-protection, the ability to disappear and get self-healing without even having to be in that position, so they can flank more. It just didn't work because Tuzi is always on the hunt and is just playing so effectively right now. Will this be the beginning of the end for FaZe's upper bracket run, or will this be the start of a reverse sweep? Don't go anywhere. We'll find out after this break.
I want your soul! Hell unleashed!
You see the dawn, the flames burning brightly, shining.
Decidedly not Chopped looking games right now, as so far they sit at a 2-0, playing incredibly. But FaZe, they did take them to the limit on the first round of map number 1. The second map, though, not as great looking.
I think the way to sum it up has just been that FaZe have matched what Chopped are putting down, but they just run out of steam. Chopped have the adjustments, or whether we move from a different side or to a different point on domination, it just feels that Chopped learn their lesson, make a quick pivot, and FaZe don't have enough about them to be able to sort of match that pace as and when needed. The other side of it is that now FaZe do have the choice of map here from Convergence. If we do see FaZe pick it up, if I'm Chopped, I'm just going, all right, we go back to domination, baby. We haven't lost there, so now you have to beat us, or we're taking this series 3-1. But I think the confidence would go a huge way for Chopped if they're able to take this 3-0. They're sort of expected to win, but I think a lot of people are underestimating the damage that this FaZe roster can do. It's just that Chopped have looked a cut above majority of teams in Ignite. But do they look good enough to qualify for Atlanta is the big question. And it is Central Park that we head to, a map that when we saw this almost this matchup in stage 1, the players on FaZe actually won out when they were playing on Z10 against the PEP players from Chopped.
But we have to have a look at the statistics for Phase 2. Not played too often so far, but it's 0-1 for FaZe on Central Park so far, whereas it hasn't been seen for Chopped, something we were talking about before we headed to the last break. So it's FaZe coming in here with what they believe to be a comfort pick, but going into the unknown of Chopped.
And if anything, I guess Virtus Pro or OGC are sitting in the wings going, thank you, FaZe, for making sure that we get to see what Chopped are playing on this map, because we want to go in with as much information as possible. And so far for the drafts, there have sort of been some change-ups here, but it tends to be always that first ban on Jeff, first protect onto Mantis, and then Ultra on Luna, depending on what teams are looking for. The Adam is going to be banned out on both sides, which I think is the first time that we have actually seen FaZe take him out. Oh no, they did it right at the end of Araco.
Yes.
But here they're doing it a lot earlier.
Yep, they learned their lesson from map number 1. Here comes the Venom Protect from Chopped. They especially seem to be enjoying that. Works out very well for them. So far, the draft is mirrored, obviously, with the exception of where the Protects are placed. So where do FaZe want to go for that final ban? They take out Loki. They saw just how much power that Loki Mantis combo can actually have on holding a point. So they remove it from play. I actually really like this.
I think it's a good pivot too, because I think that MASH has been getting so much value because you either copy the Mantis or you copy stuff like we saw before, Camp Revival. That's not going to be in play this time. But it's still like Invisible Boundary. It seems that no matter what, just having an ultimate to copy an offensive tool like Soul Resurgence from Mantis or Invisible Boundary or Luna Ultimate, certainly when you have got this like one-sidedness as well, where you're trying to protect the Luna potentially, making sure that they can't go Loki to just copy that Fate of Both Worlds is going to go a long way for Oasis to not have to worry about that.
Well, we're heading in. This could be the end for FaZe's upper bracket run if they cannot bring this back. Will Chops continue their journey and potentially set themselves up for a rematch versus Virtus Pro if Virtus Pro are able to take down OG Seed? Or will we see FaZe begin the start of a reverse sweep? We'll be finding out as we head towards Dracula's castle in Central Park.
For FaZe, the majority of their Ignite Stage 2 time has been in the losers bracket, so they're not going to be too uncomfortable, but you're looking at the big show. It's not only qualifying for Atlanta, it's $250,000 prize pool in this event alone that teams are going to be trying to get a good chunk of change from. Might keep you going to see what's going to happen in 2026 in the Marvel Rivals esports scene. And I'd hope it would be bigger and better. So for Chopped and FaZe, teams that have been building up on rosters that have only got better and the players individually huge glow-ups, having that security would be nice. But you have got the Angela diving in straight away from Binary. FaZe on the attack, trying to see if they can catch anybody off, while SmashDez is on the Storm too.
Ida is really enjoying this Angela. They currently sit at a 4-4 with it, trying to make that a positive ratio as they make their way in, trying to create some pressure onto the backline. But in the meantime, SmashDez, Oasis, and Leo get taken down. The air may be in control of FaZe, but not anymore as the ground falls first and the sky is soon to follow.
I wonder if it was too much of what you were expecting in the end, because the Binary can pull out the Angela. He's done it more so than anybody else at this rate, but he's done it in so many different areas. Now you've got Rosa going for a portal play. Maybe a hook or a catch from Leoless in the right place might be able to basically ransom one of these Chopped players away individually. They all started to dive through, and Beetle spotting him, puts the wall up, drops down to the low ground. So you have got this high ground advantage in play from FaZe. SmashDez is certainly going to enjoy that, but you need to play out where Tuzi is, because he's under a good amount of pressure himself trying to play in from this flank, but he was taking a bit of return fire from Leoless.
Good start to trade back and forth to each other, looking for the angle, but Tuzi does have that Ends of Inferno, so they're going to be dropping it into the choke point. Group wall for the protection, but Winnie is still going to fall at the first point of this fight. SmashDez is dropped low as well. Oasis is taken down, meaning the healing output isn't there. SmashDez is stuck all alone here. Binary goes down. SmashDez will back up and retreat to the rest of the team as FaZe realize that this push is over.
It's starting to maybe unravel for FaZe. Start stressing that this might be a 0-3 best-of-5 lost against your main competitor, I think, for a slot, certainly. You might start to really worry about what's going to happen here. Strangling Prison is going to have both Invisible Boundaries thrown up from Winnie. Actually, Vertigo still got his in the back pocket. Chopped not feeling threatened enough just yet of what FaZe are throwing in on the attack. But an Aya Bagamoto is looming for Rosa. He went for the portal play before. He's not going to have it for a bit. But that combination with the Bucky might be just enough to actually find these eliminations, which I just don't think we've seen many from FaZe at all.
Cracking impact from SmashDez. They found Vertigo on the backline, trying to look for a quick blow-up, but unable to do so. Counter-Silent Seduction met by the Fate of Both Worlds from Oasis, keeping the team topped up, but is it enough to keep Rosa topped up as they are dropped low, healed back up to full. Aya Bagamoto for the turnaround finds nothing. Ends of Inferno will be weakening, but again, everyone's already topped up from the side of FaZe. Rosa is once again targeted down, tanking through this Fate of Both Worlds from MASH. Leo with their own Ensong Inferno, looking for the Groot, and it's MASH statue gets taken down on the side. Beetle falls in quick succession, and Chopped, they may be forced to portal back in, but can they delay long enough as FaZe take control?
Yeah, Beetle might be able to here. You have got Crazy Kitty and Mash that have started to be picked off themselves, so they might just opt away from it. There's enough people alive. Yeah, you might as well go for this fight. It is 43 seconds on the point, so you want to just waste as much of it as possible. Even if this is a fight that doesn't go well, you might be able to force out some more ultimates from FaZe, but they don't feel too threatened in the slightest. So it is going to be the hybrid part of this map. The payload starting to churn on through with 3 minutes on the board for FaZe to push this as far as it can go.
Let's see what they can do here. They're building up towards yet another Eye of Agamotto. Chopped, making the most of these defenses. They've actually been utilizing this Mantis Groot combo pretty effectively. You can see it off on the side there, currently healing them up slowly. But Binary from above with a Psionic Seduction. Crack and impact from Smashness comes on in, was looking for anyone on the flank, won't get a reset, but is now positioned beautifully to punish everyone who steps out of that door. This is FaZe taking the momentum and running with it.
Yeah, Chopped having to reset again. They're going to have maybe, certainly one, but maybe 2 fights left on this one. And Beetle has been very good at just taking a lot of damage. He is having the absolute crap beaten out of him, but with those triple strategists and that team up with Mantis, he's got enough sustain to just be a body in all of these fights. He's not too far away from having a strangled prison, and Tuzi's under a lot of pressure, but he seems to be relishing in it. Now with the fate of both worlds thrown in from FaZe, he's just waiting for his opportunity to work alongside that. The Eye of Agamotto blocked, I think, by the wall from Groot. Beetle making sure that Rosa can't get much from it, but the invisible boundary's been forced away from the objective. Layla's trying to wait out the duration to see if he can follow up with that strangled prison that's being used as both of them slam down onto the ground, but everybody, Tetcher, is still alive.
They tagged on through. That got the turnaround. Binary is finally going to be the first to fall to DRP, who's been doing such a good job on this Vanguard, trying to keep the team zoned out. And finally, we will see Chops able to zone them back in. The Strangled Prison was tagged on through, but every tool was utilized, meaning that FaZe just did not have enough sustain to keep that fight going any longer.
Yeah, FaZe maybe upset that they haven't got to the second checkpoint, but they have forced out a lot of ultimates, like you said. You got a good build towards stuff, but the fate of both worlds is what you need to force out from Mash. But Tuzi going down, FaZe, this is a chance to really go into 5th gear and start upping the speed of this attack. You've got that player advantage for the time being. Tuzi's actually going to come back as Human Torch now with the open skies. Smashness looking to see if he can get a Kraken's Impact lined up, and an aggressive attempt from DRP to go with a Sign of Seduction to pull people in. You have got the Kraken's Impact used from Smashness. He hasn't quite got a reset. He's going to be CC'd for the time being, but everybody's still alive from FaZe. The strategist is able to keep everybody going, but through this Strangling Prison, it's just not enough. Whittled down with less than 30 seconds left.
Rosa is also one of the slowest to get taken out here, meaning that they're not up for the portal. Someone might have to swap and just try and dive the point just to touch for overtime, because they are going to be cutting this really, really close with how late Rosa went down. Meantime, Chops, they've built up. Tuzi is at 97% towards that supernova. Here comes the portal in 4, 3, 2, 1. They touch the point, and it's the final fight of what might be FaZe's upper bracket run. They cannot take this. Oasis with the payload as well. Tuzi take it down. Leo able to pop up and find the backline members. They have that Endzone Inferno for the quick turnaround. The second that invisible boundary gets taken down, they can drop it and burn on through here. Crazy Kitty is trying to keep the team topped up with the Soul Rejuvenation. DRP though getting melted down here. Endzone into the backline, and the backline is melted off the point. The point is taken. The doors are open, and the castle is sieged.
That was major from Layaless. Not only just getting the fight to get the pick onto Beetle whilst all 3 strategists are trying to heal him up again, but catching onto Tuzi whilst he's hovering in the air, waiting for the perfect chance to use that supernova. He's just hovering, waiting for all of these big cooldowns to go from the attackers before he really lets hell rain down from above. But Layaless just snipes him right out of the sky before he can really react to the damage that's coming in. But it does mean that FaZe only have a minute left to push this as far as it will go. It pretty much feels that when you're up against Chopped, you have to push it all the way to the end of the map, and Chopped are taking a very aggressive fight here with the dedication of these ultimates. They still have a supernova, and now they just got a Strangler Prison, but they've pretty much top-decked it. They've used it instantly, forcing FaZe to reset now.
But we're down to 36 seconds. There's no portal. Rosa's going to get taken down, and we're in the exact same position as we were, just a few meters further forward. But FaZe, they're actually still moving. While Chops took the fight, they weren't on the point. Finally, Supernova's going to come out and force the frontliners to back up, so they regroup with their team, picking off Rosa in the meantime. And with 17 seconds left, we're running out of time for FaZe. Rosa, with an ultimate, may have to abandon it with no portal available to reach the point in time, as we are at 7 seconds remaining.
We've even got a Wolverine that might be able to rugby tackle somebody that tries to touch, but it is going to go into overtime thanks to the help of, I think, Oasis, that's going to use the fade both worlds. But just as Binary goes down, he had the silent seduction. The timings have been exceptional for Chop to just make sure that every time that FaZe go for a fight, they're a player down because of some of that. It's a great catch again for the interrupt on Rosa, but Winnie's managed to find a pick up to 2 seed, so is Smashnez.
Smashnez pops it off. Leia is able to stay up. They got kidnapped by the Wolverine, but Ensong Inferno takes them into the sky. The Phoenix Force, life energy in the Marvel Universe, keeps them going and keeps the life of FaZe going. They're reaching that final point. It's quick rollouts time. DRP literally on Penny to get a fast rollout here to the point, then onto Cap to try and touch in time. There's the torch having to delay. Here comes Cap, the quick dives. Binary's moved over to the Angela for a little bit of knockoff onto the point as the fate of both ones coming out from Mash to keep Chopped going, but Beetle has fallen. But Vertigo with Invisible Boundary can match Winnie once that fate of both worlds expires. But if this Kraken Impact finds the hits, Heaven's Descent, Kraken Impact, but Supernova is melting as much as they can, but the heat is too much for Tuzi, and FaZe get the triple.
Tuzi trying to hold on for the Supernova, but because he was the last player alive, he's basically hovering just above the ground to keep a point contest on the payload, which means it's a Kraken's Impact. William Dafoe looking up lighthouse moment as he gets slammed right back down into the ground. It's nice to see FaZe have enough about them to push this all the way to the end, but it was a hell of a fight right at the depth that came in. Smashler is finding so much with this Bucky, and Chops now feeling like they are being pushed to the limit. Are they going to start rushing this series because they're on match point? This is where teams can make a lot of mistakes when they just want to get this series done and dusted, but you end up having it forced out longer and longer.
We were talking about the Crazy Kitty and Leolaz combo in terms of rivalry, but it seems to be coming down to the Crazy Kitty and Smashnez rivalry, as both of them with their Kraken impacts have been game-changing throughout not just this match, but this tournament. Crazy Kitty is currently hovering a Magic with no Doctor Strange to combo with it, so we'll see if that makes it out the door. On the other side, though, FaZe, they are locking it down. It's time for triple strat.
Is it Smashnez that's on the Luna as well? You don't see those kind of
Yes,
stats, like 24k damage done from a Luna. Not quite, but that's just Smashnez playing in this one. It's always a bit of a risk when you have got these like triple strategist metas that you want to make sure that your strategists and your duelists are flexible enough to pull it out. And so here, when you have got the Mantis and the Loki in play, it feels a little bit more stretched out in the end. So for Chopped, 4 minutes on the clock to try and push and match what FaZe have thrown down with finishing out the map. But it was this first point that they held so well.
This is so aggressive from Chopped. Magic, Venom, Captain America, Star-Lord with teleport, and then they have Rocket for revive if anyone gets picked off, and Mantis for damage boost. FaZe have got to be getting their targeting correct. If they can take these people down one at a time as they step in, they have hope. Otherwise, they could just get completely run over.
Well, Tuzi is waiting so long to actually go in for this flank. He's waiting to get the clones out of him from the Loki in the regeneration domain. And then that's when he starts to swing in with Crazy Kitty that can add the magic to the roster of characters that he's picked up, his little Infinity Gauntlet. And that's a very swift take. I don't know if there's going to be a chance for FaZe to contest this. Rosa swapped over, but I don't really think that there's going to be that much of a clean chance to fight.
They're looking at it, and they will portal. They're going to try it, burn through time. This is always the strategy, it seems, for FaZe. Time is the best resource. They're going to use as much of it as they can. Smashnez dropped low, though. Crazy Kitty, that's a big old group of people who've just stepped through a portal. Smashnez goes down. Winnie falls. Tuzi's picking up all the final hits, but this is going to be an absolute massacre on point number 1. Chop take it with 5 minutes to go.
I mean, that's always the risk as well. Not only do you not really have a portal play if this gets close to the second checkpoint quite quickly for Chopped, but you've allowed the attackers to farm up some pretty good ultimates to just maintain tempo, like the Yarn Amplifier for Rocket. Damage increase in these kind of moments. Even like Magic, you have to be a little bit more careful with these ultimates, and that's going to be used pretty quickly whilst FaZe is trying to regroup. The dive is coming in to just see if you can get something with it. Tuzi, I think, tries to go in with the combo as well, and it's a clean fight for FaZe to be winning. I think Tuzi... sorry, Crazy Kitty even's going to try and just go onto the Magic quickly so they can get back to spawn, reset fast, and go for something else.
FaZe just absolutely burned them there. They got caught in the same choke point that Chopped were caught in when they were on defense, but FaZe were able to sustain through it. They brought out the Hulk, they brought out the Namor. It's all about sustain right now. They're trying to punish the fact that this Magic's diving in. Immediately, like you say though, Chopped back up, they reset, they bring out the Phoenix, they're going to try and make something happen. Double stun onto Beetle and Mash though. Mash is melted, Beetle is melted, and once again, Rosa, they see the future, and it says that you're going back to spawn.
Yeah, send them all the way back. FaZe have managed to really hold a high line here. This almost feels like it could be risky, but it makes sense with everybody trying to group up. There's a lot of sustained able to take these fights, and you've taken out Tuzi. You want to just buy as many little gauntlets for this. Even using the Monstro to just slam down on everybody in a sense. Like Chopped have pretty much sent all the way back to spawn, and they can't get out.
They're being sent on back, but FaZe did lose one here. They still have kept this cart from moving. Beetle is flanking as best they can, trying to get some damage onto this Hulk, now pushing forward as the front line to keep FaZe zoned back as best as they can. Invisible Boundary comes on out. Smash this at currently half HP, but will be healed up nice and quickly once they're able to get back to their team, as they were once again on the flank. Crazy Kitties just a bit away from Enso Inferno, which they now have with Straggling Prison to try and shut down FaZe, but they tank through it again. Fate of both worlds, but that's all the defensive abilities once again used by FaZe. Counter Enso Inferno. Oh no, Leo, no!
He boxed himself in. Pretty much hotboxed himself in as well, just with that, the weight of it. So Leoless not really able to get much off of the end song. And Chopped seeing if they can sort of scramble a little bit more with the pick. That goes Leoless. So now it's really up to, I think, Smashless, where you're looking at ultimates. Another Horn of Proteus would go a long, long way to just stun out Chopped as they're trying to encroach their way up this stairwell. Honestly, there it is. That's actually able to get onto Crazy Kitty. So you've taken one of the duelists down, but it's pretty much on the edge. Beetle, Strangling Prison, almost good to go. FaZe might have all of their players back, but they just lose out on Rose at the worst time. And Agamotto having to be reset and built up from the very beginning. The Invisible Boundary is going to have the main engagement with 2 minutes on the clock.
FaZe are running at, burning down the clock though. Chopped are keeping the push going bit by bit, but it's way too slow at this stage. You can see a full retreat here. They've realized this is not working. It's time to readjust again. Tuzi now moves over to the Phoenix. Crazy Kitty being sent over to the Mantis. Similar strategy, but switching out which duelist is which. Meantime, Binary on this flank on the Hulk is causing difficulties. Getting chased down though, extremely isolated from their team, but this is more time off the clock. We're down to a minute 20 now.
Yeah, this is more of a scramble, really, which you want to get 90 seconds extra, right, for getting to the second checkpoint. We know how really close time-wise that can make things, and Chopped are not going to have as many mistakes left to make on this map. Feels again, because you have got a chance to wait for Mash, who's fairly close to having an Invisible Boundary. You want to be kind of cleanly resetting here, but you're still trying to go for this scrap. This neutral fight seems to really suit FaZe, and when you have got that Hulk Namor combination, your dives have to be crisp to get out those major cooldowns and find those moments where you can just cut through. But that's a great pick from Tuzi to go in onto this fight. You've got 3 ultimates to work with in 40 seconds. You still have a lot of space to take to go up ramp here with the payload.
Tuzi looking for anyone for one last pickup. Finds Rosa. Binary back into Hulk, being forced to rotate out as this point moves forward. Do they have Portal in time? They definitely have enough cooldown. Looks like they may just be not going for it. Binary's creeping out. May try for a last second dive to buy every extra second. In fact, they're going to hold overtime onto the point. They're rushing it forward here. Invisible Woman gets taken down. Smash this on the flag. Oh, the Proteus! I am Agamotto! They're tagging through Leo! And Song Inferno to hold it together. Crazy Kitty with this soul rejuvenation, keeping the team top chops. If they have anyone who can strange, Tuzi, it's time for an end game portal to keep them back in. This is DRP falls, Crazy Kitty falls, Beetle is the only thing keeping overtime going. It's ticking down. Can portal reach in time? Last second dive with the Invisible Woman taken out immediately, and FaZe are going to be taking us to a game number 4.
Seems to be their map type that works. They take us to Central Park and they bring us a little bit more of a close series. I think that Endsong Inferno was through the Strange portal to contest right at the end as well. So it really comes in to maintain that control that FaZe have tried to set on that defense. Leolus, brave big moments from him in that duelist role, 40 and 8. But the amount of those eliminations and picks that he found were just so perfectly placed that even the likes of 2Z and Crazy Kitty, who also had a great series on the characters they were playing, couldn't really match. Both Smashness and Leolus working together as a solid duo.
Playing that beautifully. Honestly, just an incredible game from everyone involved here. 2Z is an absolute menace on the flank. If they start picking up the Namor again as well, I'm terrified, just due to how much value they're getting. But this was about FaZe. This was Rosa, especially, really timing and showing us the value of Doctor Strange and those Eye of Agamottos. This is Smashness with so many Kraken impacts that really were Kraken impactful, and Leolaz with the Endsong Infernos exactly when needed. The only one that seemed to not really work is one that accidentally put them in a room. And not even a white hot room.
It's just the environment. Clearly not being a fan, I suppose, of FaZe, just turning against them at the right kinds of moment. But yeah, I mean, we sort of wanted to see a lot from this series, and I have to say for Smashness, he's done a good job to sort of slot in, because bearing in mind that when we did see FaZe playing in the MRC, it was Crisis on this team alongside Leo, and that's a big player to lose. Certainly when Na'Vi come knocking, it makes sense that Crisis would go to that offer for sure. But Smashness coming onto this team hasn't had those kind of moments that we've harped about with Crazy Kitty or Leolus, but I think there especially some amazing ultimates to really keep this series afloat.
When you're in a desperate situation and you're like, oh no, we've just lost one of our main 2 duelists days before the roster lock happens, and you get Smashness as the person to bring that back up, that's not only a relief, that is a get. They absolutely were able to get away with that, and it's working. They're showing they've earned their place in this team, they've earned their place in these playoffs. The fact is, though, Chopped are still 1 game away from heading it to those upper bracket semifinals, and we will continue this series. Is this the beginning of a reverse sweep, or was this simply a last gasp? Find out after this break.
Welcome back to Ignite EMEA. We're still in the playoff stage, so we're not quite ready to see what the end of this week is going to give us in regards to who's going to be the top teams of this region, but also who's going to be heading to Atlanta. So far, up until this final map texture, it did seem that Chopped were really cutting FaZe down to size, but now we have a good series. The problem, however, is now that the game modes are open up again for choice, I'm pretty sure, almost certain, that Chopped are going to take us to domination because they're the best team in EMEA on it currently.
They really are. They're 3-0 on Celestial Husk. They're 1-0 on Krakoa. They are 1-0 on Hell's Heaven. They just don't lose when it comes to domination. So if they're just going by statistics, that would be the sensible place for Chopped to take us. Let's see where they choose to go as we are heading into map number 4 of this best of 5, and it's gonna be Hell's Heaven.
So remember what I said that like Z10 versus Peps, we saw Z10 winning on Central Park, which FaZe just did. The other map that they won was Hell's Heaven. So you are literally running it back to what the majority of these teams were playing in back in May, June for Ignite Stage 1. But here it's like a revenge story. Domination is a good game mode. Chopped are really not only pushing teams, you know, like the Navis and stuff in other tournaments like Night Shift and the like, but also actually scaring the likes of Citadel Gaming, who I think were the best, if not the best, domination team in the region. And that's saying a lot when we have the likes of Navi involved too.
It really is, as we're starting to see the Mantises protected once again on both sides. We're now going to see the Ultron ban from FaZe because this draft is getting quite predictable between these two teams. It's always these last couple slots of where it gets interesting. Will we see the Adams banned once again, which on domination can be extremely impactful? And yep, there it is.
I wonder if at this rate, do you protect the Loki? Because that final Loki ban did a lot for FaZe, I feel.
It's a good question. It actually seems to work quite well, but also there's Venom, there's Emma, there's all these characters that can be so impactful, and they're going to protect Emma, especially on this map, on the actual Super Soldier Factory section itself. You can have some dominating positioning with Emma Frost, and there is that Loki ban. You called it. FaZe could see the impact.
I think it did make that strategist backline a little bit weaker for Chops. Not by much. Like I kept saying, like every time that we saw those big ultimates and I'm looking at the amount of damage that Beetle's taking, I'm seeing him go down to like 10% HP and then just zoop back up to 100 and kept alive really in those big moments. But it is that protect coming in onto Luna, so it's pretty much been exactly the same for FaZe throughout this whole thing of just making sure that they have the Luna Snow to rely on and sit back on. They're not going to get the Jeff because that was a big thing for Winnie to play with. But everybody else has to be a little bit more adaptable. Binary did lock in the Angela, and he did play it back in that, I think it was up against like Al Qadsiya, that domination first game in that best of 3 to actually get to playoffs. So Binary is happy to sort of pick it and play it, but no, Mantis is locked in despite it being a protect from both sides.
We did see FaZe run with the hyper-aggressive composition of Star-Lord, Psylocke, Venom, Angela. And they would basically, with Mantis, sometimes for a little bit of a damage boost. And the whole strategy was, of course, run at Al Qadsiya and also Virtus Pro. They tried it against them, and it was one of the maps they won, of literally just overwhelm your opponents. And this is a map they did it on. So the question is, are they going to potentially bring that back again, or are they sticking with Rosa on this Doctor Strange that has been serving them so well so far?
This is a tough ask for FaZe to win on domination, otherwise you're in the losers bracket. But you have to do something that some of the best teams in the region have failed to do either, which is cutting down Chopped in this King of the Hell control game mode. We aren't even full on for the full best of 5, but it feels like it with just how close this has been. Both teams actually, the spawn doors slightly opening, going for the portal play off the rip.
We're going to be portaling into the side. The question is, were they portaling to the high ground? DRP not staying on the Strange, though. They portaled their team and then swapped to the Venom to go for something a little bit more aggressive. Binary starting on the Venom. Not going to be going for that Angela on the initial rollout. Rosa has seen just how much Strange has been doing for them, though.
Smashdays was able to get a good cleave on with the damage from the left clicks. means that they're quite fond of having an end song, and with the first part of this point being on the low ground, slamming right on down whilst it's being contested is going to be a major one. Now it's opened up. FaZe not only finding the first pick, but finding a very uncontested point take, potentially. Yeah, it wasn't anything like what we saw in Celestial Husk texture. FaZe able to take it and take it quickly.
The binary goes down. There goes POVS punished as well. Winnie sniped on the backline, but Vertigo was finished off in kind. And it's not clean, but it is FaZe taking control of the first point. And this seems to just be such a momentum-based team because they were doing so well.
Oh, yeah.
They started struggling, and they seemed to lose it. Then they start doing well again, and they're in full control of this early point.
It's something that we don't really get to talk about too much with like the analytical focus on the meta is just mentality. These are players that have got some experience with playoffs, but certainly not looking at the international events as real contenders. For Chop, there's also a lot of expectation to be the favorites here. And now FaZe, with those early build-ups for the ultimates, able to force them out quite quickly. And Chopped not looking to try to keep engaging on this. They've basically gone in for the fight, lost people, tried to reset, gone in for the fight, had ults thrown at them, trying to reset. And now it's a bit of a scramble where FaZe are just banking on 5 out of their 6 ultimates. Now forced to use a few more, but time is working out. Freestun's going in onto Chopped. You've got both the Soul Resurgence and the Fate Above Worlds used at the same time in a mad scramble, but there was no follow-up from Rose and the rest of FaZe after that Eye of Agamotto.
They did burn Strategist Ultimates Oasis in the meantime with Fate of Both Worlds of their own, allowing Binary and Leoless to take out Mash. POVS from above though, making the most of the fact that all of the defensive ultimates are down. Trying to track down Winnie, force physics to knock him back. Ensong Inferno does good damage. POVS finds them while invisible for the pickup, and it's gonna be the flip going over to Chops. They clean out FaZe.
That was a hero play from POVS. Again, it feels like when the Star Lord's in play, the Galactic Legends are so perfectly timed that FaZe just don't really have too much of a response to them. That ended up being scrappy. FaZe hoping to get on to 99% and just make it a clean fight to try and win it and push it back to one fight and taking the first objective, the first part of this mini best of 3 that happens within this map. And Chopped, not really able to build up too many ultimates. The dive is coming in deep from Binary. He doesn't really have too much support, but he's got a bit of a fly around as Leoless is going to come in with his own Galactic Legend. Chopped, however, bunkered underground, meaning that there's not going to be too much damage thrown in from Leoless. He's trying to see if he can flush out some of the rats in his backline for Chopped, but unable to get there during the duration of his ult.
Didn't burn in these Strategist Ultimates either, meaning it's not ideal for Leo, but they make it up by taking out DRP on that Venom. Now pushing it from above, POVS looking for a little bit of a revenge to see if they can get Binary Eye of Agamotto from Rosa.
Yes,
once again, they get a stun, but they can't finish it. Rosa is landing these so often, but the triple Strategist from Chop is just proving so atrocious for FaZe to burst on through. Ensong Inferno on the massive group, and again, where's the follow-up?
It just feels that you've got the double duelist that FaZe are running too, and it's just not enough to break these breakpoints, not enough slam damage to take somebody from 100 to 0 with everything going on. But the Fate of Both Worlds alongside this Galactic Legend means that FaZe are starting to panic a little bit more as the progression is starting to get quite even. 78% versus 88% now, and they lose Rosa. He should have the portal to go in and contest this if it does reach 99%, but the rest of FaZe are in a bit of a mad scramble to try and fight this, and no ultimates to rely on to keep themselves alive.
Binary's in position, does have that symbiotic resilience, so he can be the one to touch it. Leo's going to try and make some space with the Galactic Legend coming on in here. Rosa will be looking to try and get the rest of the team back in, but Binary's already taken down as that timer ticks back up. Smashness has to be the one to touch. Portal comes in from Rosa, which will allow Binary to rejoin the team, making this a 66, but we're fighting on the last couple seconds of the point now. Smashness, Ensong Inferno. In the meantime, the backline is being harassed by POVS, and they can't do much about it over the Guardian Barrier. Eye of Agamotto once again from Rosa that buys them extra time onto the point, but they are focused down because the team is so split here. Chopped have full control, melting the members of FaZe, and they will once again continue their streak on domination by taking point 1.
POVS worth his weight in gold with how that point played out. And both times that Leoless wanted to try and go for his own Galactic Legend, Chopped are just able to bunker into the low ground, and there's nothing really there to flush them out. It's just so hard for Binary to go in for the dive on the Venom, and the one-sided Emma Frost that Beetle has available to them just makes it even harder for Binary to go for something like an Angela, which he switched to now.
Get ready.
DRP has that Feast from the Abyss for a little bit of extra burst early on, though. So while Binary could be harassing the backline with that Angela, the backline of FaZe could be at risk, and this has been what Chopped have been doing so well. They have been forcing FaZe to split, so even if Rosa is landing these big crowd controls, these big motors, these massive setups, the team is so split that they can't capitalize on it in the majority of these fights.
All you need to do is capture the
FaZe,
area. Got it?
one potential loss here. It's down to the losers bracket, and then Chopped, one best of 5 away from an international event.
Radiates a
Like
terrible
you mentioned, DRP having a Feast of the Abyss might be the thing that wants to try to jump in and start off this engagement once the dive is set up and ready. Tuzi's going to try to go through and see if he can follow off the back of it. The bite up is good, but there's just not enough about it. The main point, I guess, is forcing out the invisible boundary whilst Chopped are able to take this point uncontested is a big move for them.
That's a good trade. They will take that any day. But DRP will still fall to Smash. There's Galactic Legend will come out, and that is a much more worth trade. They lost DRP, but they get the double, make it a triple, and now chasing down onto the Luna to try and get rid of Oasis, who's looking to see if they can get a freeze or a pickup, but would instead just flee back to the rest of the team.
Also, the Galactic Legend, first point taken. Emotes are going to come out, which has pretty much been what the top teams have been doing, but it hasn't felt like that kind of one-sidedness, really, for Chopped. It's now just all up to FaZe to regain that composure. You do have a Fate of Both Worlds that is going to allow this fight to happen in the neutral, and if you take too much damage, you might be good. Silent Seduction for Beetle is now available. I'd imagine they'd want to pull it out early, just before FaZe could sit up and pull out these ultimates to try and re-engage onto the point. Fate of Both Worlds being the thing that starts off the fight for Oasis is going to force it out on the other side, and that's concerning because Chopped might be set up to go aggressive here.
Binary with the knock, just catching. Beetle is barely able to stay up with the Silent Seduction now to capitalize on the new positioning to dive the backline, but all it really does is zone the strategists who are able to move back in. But Crazy Kitty and Vertigo, they do overlap at least a little bit for Chopped, whereas Winnie is keeping theirs up after Oasis ends that Fate of Both Worlds. Winnie takes out Crazy Kitty, meaning that FaZe are starting to get a little bit of numbers going in their favor, but they have no more defensive ultimates. Neither do Chopped as they push on in. Leo mounting through DRP. Tuzi dropping the Galactic Legend extremely late in this fight, but is able to take out Winnie. Getting chased by Angela. Will get taken down though, but gets a double.
He's able to just get in like the eye of a needle from that distance, able to take out 2 of the strategists. His target focus is unbelievable. And Chopped, they don't have control of the point. They've just lost it to FaZe, but that turnaround, the ball play an instant pick onto Rosa, means that this is a quick turnaround in the other direction.
20% is all that is grabbed by FaZe. Chopped flipping it back on 73%. They are in full control. Now there's no portal for FaZe. They have to make their way back in on foot, but they have Eye of Agamotto. This could be their turnaround opportunity. Ensong Inferno and the Fate of Both Worlds also close. Heaven's Retribution also nearly there for Binary as well. Chopped, they almost have a visible boundary, and that's about it.
Instantly, we do see the Galactic Legend used on the other side, but it's feast or famine when it comes to what style of that we've been watching. At least the end of the pick, Smashbizz is able to get that final hit onto Beetle. The invisible boundary forced up just afterwards means that Chopped are allowed to contest this point, as it's pretty much on the edge of FaZe, taking it back 99%. And it could be a little bit more for FaZe if they take it back. It's 20% like we said before. It wasn't much progression. Chopped wanted to reset. One good fight, one good win, and they progressed further on into this upper bracket.
When he sent DRP into the Abyss there, knocking them off with the Force Physics, meaning that Chopped once again have allowed DRP to swap over to the Venom. Beetle off of the Doctor Strange here, back onto the EMEA of their own. Here comes the Heaven's Retribution, grabbing 3, but not wanting to capitalize on it. They're buying time with it. They're just forced down to Soul Rejuvenation and then leave. That is pretty solid here, but in exchange, FaZe are forced to use the invisible boundary as the rest of Chopped push on in.
And they went for the Eye of Agamotto as well, but it didn't connect at all. It was like a surprise bang, and it doesn't stun anybody. Tuzi, though, every single Galactic Legend has written his name into the stars. This player from Chopped is world class. And for FaZe, there's going to be some dashes, some touches, some attempts to keep this going. But it's down to the losers bracket again for them. Chopped, 1 BO5 away from Atlanta.
Chopped have been a revelation coming in here through Marvel Rivals Ignite Stage 2. Like you say, they are now one series away from qualifying, and not only that, make it to the grand finals for EMEA to potentially come our second ever EMEA Rivals Ignite champion. FaZe, though, what a performance, showing versatility, showing performance. They will make their way down to the lower bracket to continue their fight, where they've already shown that they have that lower bracket buff in their hands. But Chops have yet to need a lower bracket buff.
And that domination stat line looks even better for them. King of the Hill, it's really them just pulling everybody else down into the muck and the mud with these kinds of fights. But when you have players like Crazy Kitty that could just flex onto whatever role is needed, whether it's a triple strategist, a duelist, or even a vanguard in some of these cases, or some pseudo role like Wolverine, he's good for it. But it just allows that freedom for Tuzi to come in and look like one of the best duelists, not only in the region, but in the world. He found so much of this pick that he's going to get onto Oasis. The focus of like, okay, there's too much going on here. I'm able to go and catch that before Smash does trades. It's perfect.
The hyper-awareness, I'm being targeted by Angela, I'm being targeted by everyone, I'm not going to get these people, they're too grouped up. Who's alone? Who is the biggest threat right now? Luna. Targeting them down, massive pickup. Like you say, Tuzi, we've known this in stage 1. They are world class. If there is like, if we go into next year and there's probably going to be a bidding war for Tuzi.
Yeah, he's the kind of duelist that you want to be building around, and because he was sort of like untested or unknown, like I think that the majority of that all business team that he was on was from a previous game, and then they sort of found a player like Too Easy. It was like, what kind of player is he? Is he media trained? Is he somebody that like feels that you can sort of build up around the brand and stuff? It feels that in the server, yes, and he still has room to grow as just a player, as an individual. He's the kind of person, like you mentioned, that Augs would want to pick him up because he is potentially the face of this game with how he plays sometimes.
Legitimately, just continues to impress, but they've also just built such an incredible team around him. Just everyone on this team continues to impress. We've seen so much performance from the strategists in particular, especially bringing out stuff like that Loki to keep the team topped up. The flexibility as well. They've played almost every strategist. And speaking of the strategists, we have Vertigo coming in to join us, fresh off of the win that puts you one win away from getting it to 1, qualify for Atlanta, and 2, into those grand finals. How are you feeling, Vertigo?
Feeling good, but we were kind of ready to advance in the uppers, and real game begins now, kind of, for our team.
Because we haven't really had too much of a chance to talk to many of you guys from Chopped, like how did this team sort of come together? Because you have got the call from Peps there, and then you were obviously on like 0% and stuff. At what point did you guys like start playing together? Because you played together in MRC. But what point did you realize that like, oh, this team is actually the real thing, right? Because you guys had a really good like third-party event win against Na'Vi when they came back from China. At what point were you like, okay, no, this team is potential for an international event?
I mean, in last MRI, I was with Young Kinda. I wasn't with Peps, nor 0%. And I put up an LFT, and out of all the teams, this was like the highest potential skill team I had. And like other teams tried to sway me with like potential offers and stuff like, we will get an org here, we'll get an org there. But like last time I guided myself with greed in my last team choice. So this time I decided to go with pure skill only.
So you are going to be up against either Virtus Pro or OG Seed. You guys have already played against Virtus Pro in the MRC. What has changed between then and now?
A lot has changed, and primarily the ban system, which benefits a lot of teams. PP doesn't like it, and I think Navi, Citadel, we like it.
I think the other thing as well is just because like it seems that you're like a very vibes-based team, that when things are going well, you guys play amazingly, and I feel like there's an element of like you're expected to play up against Virtus Pro tomorrow for qualifying, that you're up for the challenge, that you're not scared of them and that they should be scared of you, right? So how do you like manage that, I suppose, to like keep you guys feeling positive and just almost keeping this honeymoon phase potentially going to go on and actually be more than a honeymoon phase, right? Like how do you sort of control like the mood of the team to keep them fighting in games like that? Because it feels like you're always up for it.
I feel like everyone just has strong trust in themselves, and we trust each other, and we all know we can be capable players and we can beat the best, so we just stick to that. We have a coach that always raises voice on voice chat when we are feeling down or there are no vibes, and we just go from there.
Well, we'll let you go from here to your team so you can rest up and prepare for tomorrow, where you'll be continuing your journey. Thank you very much for joining us, Vertigo, and best of luck.
Thank you for having me.
Very locked in, very focused. That was a solid performance by them. They just felt they said they expected to be here, and well, people of their word, they are now in that upper bracket semi-final.
Yeah, I mean, it's not surprising for a lot of people. We spoke to the teams beforehand of like, what